All set? Good afternoon. It's now Town Alton Planning Board, the Capital Improvements Program and its agenda for tonight, September 6th, 2022 at 6:05 PM on the second floor. Call to order. Can I get an approval of the agenda, gentlemen?
Motion, we approve the agenda if there is no changes.
No changes.
Can I get a second?
Second. Pat, second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Great. So we have two department heads tonight. James Bowden, Fire Chief, and Ryan Heath, Town Administrator. Who has the shortest presentation, would you say? Wonderful. Okay.
Yep.
So
I think we should
take,
Ryan first.
if I have no objection from the board, can we take Ryan Heath first? Okay, Ryan, thank you.
I mean, it can't be too long. All he wants is a couple of toilets.
Yeah,
Okay, that's $1,500.
there we go. So the request this year is a little bit different. Just to want to clarify the changes that have recently taken place with the capital reserve for the town hall. As you know, my position as town administrator is due. A new role for me. So things have changed a little bit with the help of the fire department as well. So for years, the capital improvements for the town hall consisted of putting a little bit of money away for their sprinkler system that they've been kind of tucking away year by year, but having been making a whole lot of ground. This year, the deputy fire chief had come out and was reviewing fire codes and the situation with our assembly permit. And as you know, the reason for the sprinkler system is the assembly permit that we have right now currently. I believe the capacity on that one on the wall right there is 157 people in this room. I'll tell you right now, there's no way you're gonna fit 157 people in this room. Just to give you an example, because it was a visual for me. The chairs over there, including everything stacked against the wall, which I've never seen that whole row emptied out, is 57 chairs. So we're almost talking 100 more people in this room. It's not a realistic, comfortable number for us to manage for any assembly. And I say manage. Can you pack that many people physically in here? Probably, but to manage that in a safe and orderly fashion is not realistic. The issues that we have, a sprinkler system is required by fire code for a place of assembly that is going to have assembly permit, and that's defined by over 100, a capacity of over 100 people. What we've recently done is I applied for a grant, which we've been preliminarily granted. It has to go through Governor Council through emergency management because I still hold the title of the role as emergency management director. This area in the town hall has become the emergency operations center. It was years ago originally the operations center and moved down to the PD when I took over as emergency management director because it was more conducive to my role down there. But where I'm back up here permanently, that location of the emergency operations center has changed up here. Therefore, they have monies available to upgrade the standards of the emergency operations center up to $45,000, I believe it was. With that, we have changed the configuration of this room to more of a business lecture hall seating. It's going to be, instead of calculated by standing room only, it's going to be calculated through tables and chairs ratio, which changes from 7 square foot per person to 15 square foot, as it was explained to me by the deputy fire chief. And what that does is it changes, one, the use of the room, makes it more realistic for the numbers, because it still allows us to bring in a maximum of 97 people, which is still a significant number that we haven't seen in here. The seating that we have designed and applied for, as far as funding is concerned, would have seated space that is set up with tables, narrow tables, like a lecture hall, almost like chevron seating, facing stage This big boardroom table will no longer be here. This will all be seating space facing the stage. And we will have permanent tables up on the stage for board or committee members to be utilized. Still, when you have the larger boards and subcommittees that meet, the tables and chairs on the floor can be configured like a traditional training room, like a lot of the modern training rooms. You can configure the tables to accommodate a larger number if the stage area is too small for the board or committee that's meeting. But that stage area is going to be set up to accommodate 10 people up there. And what that does, like I said, is it changes the function of the room from a place of assembly to a place of business by terminology, and therefore reducing the amount of increasing the amount of square footage for seating and tables. So we'll no longer have an assembly permit for this room. That is where the elimination of the sprinkler system comes in. Sprinkler system is a big problem. I know that it's a great safety feature to have, and realistically in modern buildings, you should have them. I don't have anything negative to say about that, but in our particular situation, you're talking about retrofitting a building that has horsehair and lap in the walls and everything else. Everything has to be exteriorly, but more importantly, the water main right now, in discussions with the water department, doesn't have enough pressure to support a water system out front. So not only are we going to undertake being able to put a sprinkler system in here, if we were to continue in that manner, we would also have to increase the size of the main running underneath Route 11, which is in itself a serious undertaking as well. So that's the direction that we're moving in right now. That's why there's no longer a request in there, tied to the sprinkler system. The monies that are being requested this year for the CIP is the town hall capital reserve is for improvements, modifications, in particularly one of the things that we need to tackle that's been neglected for a while is the restrooms here in town hall. The restrooms, we have two restrooms that are not ADA accessible. They do not meet any current standards in that manner. Not to mention that they're the tile is chipped, broken. We have issues with leaking pipes and constantly repairs and fixing, as the employees can attest to. So we need to, we're not going to massively renovate the restrooms, but we have two restrooms, a man and a woman's restroom that are gender specific and are, for lack of a better terminology, gang bathrooms. All right, you got multiple stalls, you got a urinal and stalls in the men's room and stuff like that. We have the space. It's just configured very poorly. So we're going to take those spaces. The plan would be to take those spaces and create two unisex, single stall, ADA accessible restrooms for employees and the public as well. Hopefully in the future, as we move through stages with renovating and opening up space here in the town hall, we would like to make possibly one of these offices, Josh's office, a second floor restroom too, for handicap accessibility during meetings. So people don't have to try to get up and down the stairs to utilize a restroom as well. So those are just some of the future plans that we're looking at. As you can tell now, we already have one project underway. Those of you who haven't been up there or seen what it looks like up there, feel free to walk up and take a peek. It used to be the balcony area. Over the years, it was closed in. The area that was the balcony was made up with a drop ceiling, was not structural. You couldn't stand on it. You can't put any filing on it. It would have come right down through the office ceilings or the elements. So what this renovation or this first part of this entails is they put a structural floor in, tied it back to the supports. They're going to sheet rock the ceiling. They've already put a subfloor upstairs. There's 2 levels. We're going to have office space up there. More importantly, we're going to have a whole lot of filing space. They got walls that are set up there for 7 to 8 lateral files on one wall. Another one's can house up to 10 full-size filing cabinets. The problem in this building has always been storage, long-term required storage, and we've been running out of it. And there was no place to go below, but there was a lot of unused space up top. So we're gonna hopefully work our way down with improvements and spreading out the offices and better long-term file management. So. Questions? I'm gonna stop there. I'll just take questions. Okay.
Now, and I know this isn't the place, but like Pat will tell you, this isn't how we nitpick your, so the whole getting rid of this and going up on the stage, is that set in stone? Or is that
Yes.
something they're spitballing?
Nope.
Sounds
that
like
was-
kind of a crappy idea to me.
Oh, it was approved at the
All
board
right.
meeting. Yep.
All right. Second one was,
Crappy idea. Why?
well, this is unique. I mean, people coming up, they can sit across from the board. I mean, that sounds like a high school quiz up there.
So how does an applicant, or how would an applicant present to the board if they were
From a-
sitting
Up
up?
the stairs.
No, they present from a podium. From podium in the middle. The chevron seating is on its side. The single aisle, 6 feet wide, will be open down the middle, and there'll be a podium with it. Also part of the grant proposal was new wireless microphone system to upgrade the problems that we have with these ones.
So, so the board members would be up top. Would they be in a circle like this or
No, straight table,
straight tables?
one straight table. It's one
Straight table.
table that's being designed and built for that stage.
So, I mean, planning board, I mean, is this, we got 10 members at times?
Yes. We actually, if everybody showed up and all the alternates, we have 11, including myself, so that'd be 12.
So your alternates sit when they have a full board?
Yep.
Yes, they just don't vote.
Well, because they.
I was gonna say,
because
because
because the next week-
they're not supposed to
No.
sit less
the
than.
alternates have to sit because on the next meeting, they may be put into it. And so they have to know what's going on.
Right.
They can do that from down here.
But down here,
Yeah, they shouldn't be sitting on the board with
Yes,
you.
alternates should be sitting at the board. They have the opportunity to
Ask
have part
questions.
of the discussion. They can't vote and they don't contribute to the deliberations. Everything else, they're a part of at the table.
And like I said, if you have a board at that point in time that it exceeds the
Mhm.
amount of space up on that table, the tables on the floor can be configured in any space you want. But the majority of the entire year, you're dealing with a table like this size with this many empty chairs and all of the dead space in here. I mean, I know you say it's unique and people can come and sit across from you, but you don't,
we
it's
got
just a lot of
we
wasted
got a lot
space.
of dead space out there too that isn't being used. And this is I don't know, this is a unique situation. I mean, it's a dead space room.
But the problem is that plaque on the wall right here.
So you just remove chairs. I mean,
No, you have to
No.
set up, you have to set up tables. You can't remove chairs. That's not how that works. It has to be set up and configured in the manner of tables and chairs.
So Ryan, me personally, what I find this to be, and you're right, there is a lot of dead space. But because we're in a circle, not only do we get the opportunity to have the respondents or the applicants right where you are, and we can talk to them and sit and whatnot, I can actually see all the other board members and their faces. If we're all looking out, I'm wondering what effect that will have, to the board members itself. In other words, if, let's say, Pat speaks, that means everybody's got to either look to their left or their right, listening to whoever it is. So when you make the if that's what the decision is to make it, you may want to make it look like a pyramid instead of straight. Kind of like this, so that people can actually see each other, you know, it's just a point.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering if you did make a pyramid, if there could be two seats in the front up top, then the applicants could actually be up there and not down below. Yeah.
Well, the other thing, I mean, applicants, a lot of times they're coming with briefcases and plans, and they can't work off a podium. You got the applicant, you got his lawyer, and you got his engineer. There's three of them. And
There's gonna be two smart boards too. One here,
Oh.
an 85-inch smart board here,
Over here.
and an 85-inch smart board up above the board behind them. So then the crowd will have one and that, because one, this doesn't meet the Department of Labor standards. This, we got dinged on this extension cord and this other one there because they're not safe. But this setup is antiquated. The smart boards are much better. Most of these engineers and lawyers are bringing laptops where they can hook right into through Bluetooth into the smart board and display the presentations up there.
So if we're up there, we would have to.
You
look
would
at
be
the
able-
smart-
You'd be able to
looking
look
at
at
the
that.
smart board over here.
if I was up there, you could read that smart board.
What are you looking for money?
What?
What are you looking for money?
My proposal was
this.
60,000 into the capital reserves, and that was.
I was just
mainly
trying to
for-
find it. I
Yeah.
couldn't find it. on there.
You have 40,000 on here.
Did it put 40 on that one?
Very first.
It's on the very first one.
I thought 40 was last year. I thought he increased it to
Looking on
60,
there.
but
No, yeah.
There we go.
So are you looking for 60 grand?
no, I'll keep it at 40 then. That's
Okay.
fine. Yeah,
So that was my other question.
sorry.
Files up there, is that people downstairs?
No, it's not the building files. They use them way too much to be running up and down 3 flights of
Yeah,
stairs.
no.
Yeah, no.
Already
We've
made
already
that quite
we've already
clear.
had that discussion at length. No, what I'm talking about is there's a lot of long-term permanent file, and it's that above and beyond the clerk's office, because the clerk's office, most of that stuff is all retained in the vault and secure. But you got a whole room behind this curtain that's overflowing right now with, things under the retention schedule for the state. That municipalities have to keep, like legal cases, any sort of lawsuits involving past employees, employee records. There's a lot of assessing stuff.
Cold storage.
Yeah, it's stuff that's, that we're required to keep forever, but we need to have a secure place to maintain that. I've done as best as I can as far as weeding out the stuff that we've been in here for weeks before we even started the renovation, with the retention schedule, pulling boxes up and going through everything to be able to weed out everything that we possibly could by law. But we still have a large number of stuff that we have to keep. And even if we go, Josh has got proposals coming up for the board for cloud storage, to be able to scan and store. But a lot of the stuff I'm talking about, even if we have hard copy, actually a lot of it's plans too, from planning board stuff, permanent decisions, things like that. You can't get rid of any of that. So there's a lot of paper trail that comes along with all those applications and everything else. So that's what we're dealing with. But no, my plan is to try to free up some of the space moving up from the second floor. We have a lot of payroll retention too, that it's only 7 years worth, but it's a lot with AP and payroll. But then my hope is the opening of the space and the trickling down. There's a lot of stuff that just hasn't been gone through down on the first floor too, that we can purge. And now, is it going to help the 37 filing cabinets in the Heike room? I don't know if I'm quite going to be able to free up
I know.
all that, because the issue with that is we can't remove it out of the first floor because it's used too much on a daily basis. So we can't put it down in the basement. We can't put it up on the third floor. So I got to find someplace on the first floor to be able to retain that much storage. And I hate to say that I have not solved that problem yet. Completely.
That's interesting. Um, I bought the old Manchester Police Department down in Manchester,
Yep.
and it has these roll files, you know, that
Mm-hmm.
they're actually on rolls.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, you go like this and it rolls into each other, okay, and it's to consolidate space. And I have two of them.
Mhm.
One's 40 by 30. Another one is 30 by 20.
Well,
And they can go as high as 10 feet. Okay, 10 feet high. But I mean, they run really, you know, they're on a casters, okay, that and you fold them up and whatnot. I wonder, would that save you a lot of space?
I mean,
I-
I'd have to look at it, but
I'll get you pictures of it and maybe you can come down and take a run, because we're tearing the building down.
okay.
Okay, so those are going.
All right. Yeah.
I'm just thinking about
that-
consolidation of space.
That was brought up. There was another method similar like that, but a lot of hospitals have filing systems that you can bring files from the rear to the front and they circulate by alphabetical order,
Yeah.
stuff like that. And it seems similar to that, but they
It's not,
make all sorts of.
they're all together, but you know, it consolidates an incredible amount of space. They used it for their, all of their, boxes for evidence.
And storage.
It's evidence storage.
Mhm.
And it's, I mean, it can all be A, B, C, D, E, you know, can be all done, but it's an incredible system.
Yeah.
Maybe that might be useful.
Sure. Be
At
worth it.
least take a look at it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. Okay, so you still want to stay with the 40 grand, Ryan? Or-
Yes, yeah, that's fine. We'll stay with the 40 share. So some of the other, some of the other funding we're utilizing is some of the ARPA funding as well. A little bit of ARPA funding that we received, because we got a second payment that just came in. So the current projects that I have, we had money, I'm utilizing money out of the capital reserve, matching with grant funds. And then we have a little bit of ARPA money, and then the HVAC system that's coming out of the Clough Moral Fund, which we can utilize the Clough Moral Fund, but it's interest only. But we had close to $200,000 in interest alone without touching the principal on that account. That was approved to utilize for the HVAC system.
So we have a capital reserve fund in here right now of $61,516. How much do you think you're going to be utilizing of that with your current stuff?
Right now, we will probably, at the end of the year's totals, we will probably have used close to 50 to 52,000 of that 61 or
Okay.
62.
And this is showing that in 2023, you're going to utilize the 40,000 that you're looking
Yes.
to utilize it.
Yep.
And then moving down the road, we've,
Yeah, I have to update that, the deposit numbers.
Yes.
I need to update that, because
okay,
that's the old 14,000 that was requested. I have to update that to 40.
to 40,000.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was left over from last year.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
great.
as we're moving forward, one of the things that we're discovering, I was actually showing Annie before the meeting. And like I said, I encourage you to look for yourselves if you'd like. But we're encountering problems as we move forward. It's an old building, but the problems that we're encountering so tomorrow, the brick mason's coming. I had to borrow an aerial lift, because they got to flash all the chimneys. So when they opened up even though we put a new roof on this place, when they opened up the walls, we have active leaks that have been festering for years. See one of them right there?
Mhm.
Now getting bigger to the point where, with the storm we had today, Jen has drips coming down the clerk's office. So we're gonna end up cutting into the tin ceiling down there. So these are some of the things that are coming up. So I am anticipating improvements, but at the same time, we need to address some of these long-term repairs that haven't been done.
Sure.
So we've uncovered 2 active leaks that we had to cut out wet framing around the chimneys. And then the other one was there was a patch years ago, somebody had hammered out the brick. So the outer walls of this building are 3-layer brick. And somebody had hammered out the layers of brick and then came back in and patched in just the outer layer. When we took the patch off up there, you could see daylight through because they're not actually pointed, and they were put in and kind of slapped together with a trowel and not pointed or anything. So you see daylight through them.
Oh,
If you push on it too hard, it'll come right out the back of the wall. So
put a vent there.
yes,
Yeah,
yeah. I don't know why somebody hammered it out. The only thing I can imagine is at one point when there was a balcony up there, they were made to make an egress because they hammered it out up over one of the arched windows. They hammered it all out. So I think somebody made it wide enough for egress. But then when they shut it off and just sort of closed it in and didn't use it anymore, they just put that one row of brick back up. So, but we definitely going to address, that's going to be on the agenda for the Board of Selectmen on the 12th, is making them aware of these leaks that have been found and need to be addressed and things of that nature.
Okay. Questions from the board?
I guess my questions lie in the future, and I realize that we're replacing a lot of things now. But my questions would be is what's coming up that we're not looking at now? So you're assessing some flashing issues and that kind of thing, HVAC. Are there any other things? I know the septic wasn't long ago, but are there any other things that are glooming out past 28 that are coming that aren't necessarily itemized out on here?
One of the other things that but I didn't put this into the CIP plan because I'm going to put a warrant article out for flooring. Just one warrant article to replace the flooring in the town hall. This carpet predates Lisa. She was the only employee that had been here longer than me before she retired. And I asked her how long the carpet had been in here, and she said it long predates her. So it was mid-90s or whatnot. But this one, it hasn't held up. It's held up pretty good up here. Down in planning and building and stuff, it's got runs and rips all through it and everything else. So that was one other thing we plan to address. But like I said, I figured that was an item that was one item that I can get some quotes for and then put together into a warrant article and see if the public, if the taxpayers wanted to go for. I don't even know what it'll run at this point with fluctuating costs. But as far as the only other things that we're looking at to move down through the rooms is mainly crack repair and plaster restoration. Because almost every room, but as far as long-term, you're right. The septic had already been replaced not too long ago. I have a copy of that plan. Ken and his guys did that. I want to say that was probably only 4 years ago, 4 or 5 maybe. We're upgrading the propane tank this year from a 500 to 1,000 gallon because we're going all propane with the heat. The oil tanks have already been removed and taken out. Other than that, it's mainly addressing leaks, repairs, cracks. We have a couple of areas that have big gaping cracks. There's an area in front of the vault by John's desk where the plaster has just come right off the ceiling in a big chunk and the lap is exposed. So we have some areas like that we need to patch, we need to skim and then take care of before the cracking and the shifting gets worse. But that's mainly the other thing that we're looking at, and again, there's monies allocated in other areas, but it was brought to my attention that there's a warrant article that appropriated $50,000 for a lift repair or an elevator. And so we have that 50 grand. It lapses in 2024. Nothing had been done with it. So I started getting quotes from lift and accessibility companies. Actually had a meeting with the fire chief today and the deputy chief on that issue itself. So we can't repair the current lift we have. They don't make that lift. It's not ADA compliant. It's not big enough. It doesn't hold enough capacity. So we had a company come out to quote us for another chairlift, several companies, to go up there. And unfortunately, the ones that are already ADA accessible, the platform is too big, so it can't make the swing on our stairwell. As it comes up right at the base of the stairwell, it won't make the swing. It's too wide. The other issue is they're so heavy that in order to put one on the stairwell, they would have to rip the stairs up and block it to reinforce it because there's not enough blocking in there to hold the steel frame. And that's plastered underneath. If you ever go underneath it in the ticket booth, I went underneath there hoping it might be exposed and they could block from behind, and it's all plastered. So they have to cut all the plaster out, or they'd have to rip all those treads up and put it in. I got quotes on vertical lifts. So there's two issues with the vertical lift. One, actually the vertical lift is cheaper. It's a better way to go. Plus it's a lot easier to utilize a vertical lift for someone handicapped than to fold down the platform, get the remote, do the whole thing with the chairlift. The only problem was the only area that they can put the vertical lift was we would have to cut a chase through basically the corner of the Heike room up into the hallway right here. The only other reasonable option that made any sense, and this is why we met with the fire department today, talk about code issues, is the only place that structurally makes sense to put the shaft in and get an elevator up here is to take out that back staircase, because you have landings all the way up in a straight line from the basement all the way up to this floor. The issue is it takes out the second means of egress from this building. I mean, from this room. So the meeting we had this morning was to talk about fire escapes. Because realistically, if we were to do a vertical lift up the back, we would have to put a fire escape out the window in that hallway out here, right before the elevator. So give you an idea, the vertical lift for a 3-person vertical lift, it can fit a wheelchair and an occupant or two into it. So they basically call it, it's like a medium-sized vertical lift. It's not a full elevator, but it can hold up to about roughly 3 people in a motorized wheelchair. And that includes the shaft, the assembly, the elevator, all the components to run the elevator, except for obviously running the electrical. And then we would have to, case in and sheetrock or whatever the shaft afterwards, but the metal core, they quoted us at the best price I got was $61,000, which I actually thought was pretty good because I got about $110,000 quote for the chairlift to go on the stairs. So that is another thing that we're trying to work. I mean, this was another project that was started. The money was allocated, I want to say in 20 or 19. It was like a 4-year warrant article that lapses, and so it was in 20 because it lapses at the end of 24. So we're trying to get an active, realistic plan for that as well, so that we remain somewhat ADA compliant at that point. I mean, our lift is grandfathered right now. It is inspected for this year, but it has gone down twice already. So I think that's it for.
Sure. Yeah. And then just the $40,000 for this year, are you envisioning that being a standing appropriation year after year, or is it pretty much just for this year to get back to where? Is there a comfortable number in CIP you're looking to see? In terms of like a reserve?
I would say that I would continue with that level of funding each year, because we have, as you can say, we keep talking about issues that there are there's been some past neglect with a lot of our buildings, unfortunately, and I think it's because we haven't kept a certain threshold in funding for those buildings, or we just haven't taken on projects as aggressively as we should with some of those buildings, because I think falling behind the power curve on it. I mean, at some point, yes, my goal is to tackle a lot of these unaddressed items, get to a certain level of comfort, and make sure that we level out. But what leveling out with inflation and the cost rising year after year for materials and building and stuff, until that levels out, I mean, an appropriate threshold for building this size. I mean, they did the square footage on this and we're almost 7,000 square feet in here. $40,000 doesn't really seem like a high maintenance number for a building of this size or this nature. But then again, you know, if we can get to a certain point, obviously, where we can maintain with 20 grand, then great. We do have other areas, other sources. So with that said, every year the Clough Moral Fund is going to gain interest as well. And that's for town hall. So after this HVAC project, we will be in good shape for bigger projects, large projects. That'll give us an opportunity to recoup some interest in the Clough Moral Fund too, which could offset that, because if the interest is growing in that at a reasonable level, then yes, maybe we can knock that funding request down to $20,000 a year and offset it with the interest from the Clough Moral Fund.
So the $40,000 appropriation, you anticipate that to be not necessarily expended annually, but money to be spent annually on various projects?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So did I miss something, or is Ryan asking for $40,000 per year?
Yep.
Okay, not the 14,000 that we have.
Right. That was
was
left
last year.
over from the sprinkler system, 14.
Oh.
So I was waiting to hear from Ryan tonight. I will update my numbers.
Okay, so it's
I wasn't sure if it
40,000.
was going to be 40,000 out every year, so I didn't want to start touching numbers.
Okay, so Ryan, the moral, is it Moral Clough Moral?
Fund.
How much money is in that?
The roughly, not to the penny, but roughly it's close to $900,000 in the principal, right?
The
now.
principal?
Yes.
And you had about 200,000 in interest,
Yeah, I think it was 192.
192. But you've utilized most of that for the HVAC?
The HVAC program, our proposal that was approved was 180,000. We had
180.
about 192.
Okay, so for all intents and purposes, it's being used up the interest.
Yeah.
And you're not allowed to use anything but the interest.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, so what you want to do is build that back up. And just so I'm clear
Mhm.
and the board is clear. So that makes a whole lot of sense that we want to do something here to make sure that, you know, through 2028, there's a reserve here that can be utilized, that's conducive for this building, because there's always going to be a few surprises.
Mhm.
Is there anything else that you can extrapolate money for surprises that?
There's only one capital reserve for this. Besides the Clough Moral Fund,
Yep.
there's only one capital reserve for the town hall, which is this one for the building, this one
This
capital
year.
reserve. That's
Okay.
it. Yeah.
Good.
I mean,
Okay.
other than various lines in the operating or admin, I do have some building maintenance lines and stuff, but
Right.
those are modest lines that wouldn't cover.
So if you could, for next year,
Mhm.
okay, just think about what Pat has asked you,
Mhm.
okay, about long-term,
Sure.
even if it's short money, so that, you know, as as we're trying to manage the dollars, you know, for the town and do it appropriately, we may be able to take that 40,000 and cut it back if we see that it's not being utilized, you know.
Right.
You know, but for the time being, I think it's prudent that we, you know, we'll look at it, but it's prudent to consider the 40 grand going forward.
Mhm.
Okay, until such time as you tell us that I don't think I need it, you know.
I think this is going to be a global problem with all of the town buildings. It's going to be difficult to kind of anticipate where we want these accounts to be. But kind of trying to figure out that number, I think will help us in the long run. So if it's
In the long run.
200K for the town hall, or if it's 50K for the Parks and Rec building, then we can kind of, when we go and try and make this total appropriation $1 this year, you know, it's,
Yeah,
we
well,
can make the decisions
Right.
maybe based on that. So
great. Thank you, Ryan.
Thank you.
you.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
You guys have a good evening.
Oh, I'm sorry, board. Anybody else, guy? No, guys? No,
Sure.
Roger.
We can talk for another hour.
Yeah, yeah.
No? All right.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so that's 40. Hey.
Yeah, I'll get that
So-
fixed for the next.
That all came to the selectmen?
Yep.
You guys said it was a good idea?
yeah. Because of
Exactly.
how everything worked out and the rules that we have to follow and everything else, it was the only logical way to do it right now, besides spending probably a couple $1 million by the time we do the water line and do everything else for this building. So we were under the gun because they've been putting this permit off for years and years as far as, so it was time to do something. And we had to make a decision.
Why did the water line have to be?
Because it won't pump. There's not enough line or pressure to get up to here to do this room. There you go, yeah.
You can't put a pressure unit on it to increase. I mean, I ain't got much flow coming out of my house, but I start the pressure cleaner and up it comes. Pressure.
It's not pressure. It's the flow, yeah, it's not getting enough, yeah.
Dry system won't work?
Still need the water.
Yeah.
No, we went over and over and over and over. I mean, this wasn't just hey, let's do this off the top of our head. It was, he had 6, 7 different options to go and just.
You're gonna have to operate the main, or you have to have a water storage tank.
Yeah, so either way, you're spending more money than we have. This was the easiest, cheapest, sensible solution for right now.
Pretty soon you're gonna have a fire department right out here. You probably could have just run a line right down the friggin' road to the fire department.
And maybe in 6 years maybe in 6 or 7 years when that comes true, maybe that's will. But right now we had to do what we had to do, you know. So that's the way I was presented and the way we feel. So that's
Chief,
let's get on to the fire.
welcome.
How we all doing?
So I have no idea what order your stuff is in. I don't know if you want to start with fire or ambulance.
Um,
Oh, boy. The ambulance only has 3 things.
But before we get into it, full disclosure, because this topic came up last year, I don't want anybody to be surprised. I am a full-time employee of the fire department, so I will not be voting on any of these items. Although it has been confirmed by legal counsel that I could do so. Just to eliminate any possible theories or ideas of conflict, I will be refraining from voting on any voting that has to take place with the fire department.
Thank you for the disclaimer.
Yeah.
That was,
I'm gonna make you a copy of our plans, so.
Sure.
See what we're looking at.
What order did you guys have the proposals in? Does it matter?
It was the ambulance first. I believe.
Ambulances first? Okay.
I would,
The ambulance stuff is usually pretty easy anyways, because that all comes from the ambulance revolving fund, no taxation. It's from ambulance billing. I'll wait for her to come.
Yeah. I'm just thinking,
She knows all that.
Paperwork, it doesn't have any information.
Did I do with it?
You might have been, I didn't print it. That's definitely a possibility.
Okay, so Guy, you suggested that we go right to the ambulance.
Yeah, that's what it has the ambulance
sure.
first. So.
Sounds like a good idea. Okay,
So the first one I have is the replacement for ambulance one. That ambulance is currently a 2016. It's kind of coming up on its lifespan. We got it scheduled to be replaced in 26. So when I put these together, the last price we paid, which was in 2016, was 250,000. Recently had some manufacturers come talk to them, and they're closer to like 350,000. Yeah, it's
okay, so,
that's that inflation rate, you know?
so you still got 2026,
Yep,
but 350
gonna
grand,
be closer to 350.
okay? And that comes from the ambulance funding.
Yep, that's the
revolving
ambulance
fund.
revolving fund, which is
Yep, got it.
um,
Okay,
straight from billing, and I got some numbers I can go over with you in a minute on that stuff, as far as what actually comes into that account, and what we typically take out. The second proposal I have is to replace our cardiac monitors. Cardiac monitors they're used on every medical call we go on. EKGs, but they also do blood pressures, pulse rates, oxygen, carbon monoxide levels. So it gives us a lot of information, plus that information automatically uploads into our medical reports. So when we write them, that information is already in there. It also faxes that same information to the hospital ahead of time. So they're, obviously a vital piece of equipment, and they're a required piece of equipment on the ambulances. This proposal here is to replace the two we have with like monitors. Last check, that 60,000 was still going to be a fairly accurate number for the two machines. However, there is some talk now, mostly from the selectmen, as far as keeping an ambulance and going to a third, just due to our call volume. And if that becomes the case, we're gonna have to add a monitor, and that would actually go up to 90,000 at that point. Not all of that is 100% confirmed. There is some possibility of, if we do that for a short term, buying a used model and, getting us by until that time. But what's probably going to happen is we'll probably end up having to buy a third at that point.
I'm sorry, what's probably gonna happen?
That we'd probably need a third monitor. Right now, this proposal is for two. If we keep a third ambulance, we're gonna need a third monitor.
Currently have two ambulances.
We currently have two ambulances, each have their own monitor. So if we go to a third ambulance, we're going to have to
Okay.
stock it with another monitor.
Jessica, can you?
Yep.
Right now, probably up in east. Yep.
Okay, can you put down on the cardiac monitor, 2 monitors?
Yeah.
Here, so that we know.
Yep.
What is going on with that? And let's, just to be comfortable, let's raise that to 65,000. Okay? Just to
Sure.
give it a little bit of a bump. Okay? I'm assuming that the ambulance number 2018-28,
Yep.
should we be moving that up to 350,000 or a little more?
Yep. It's gonna be in the same boat.
So 350 on that? Okay,
Price, that's 2028. That'll probably be 450 by then.
I'm kind of hoping things stabilize out a little bit. We're still on this rise.
you want to bump it, Raj?
No, I don't want to bump it. I'm just saying it.
No,
Yeah, you might not be wrong. So as far as the ambulance revolving fund and funds go, just so you guys have a better idea, we put in through billing on average, I average out the last 5 years, we put in about 227,000. Goes into that account yearly. Now we take out for the ambulance budget about 100 116,000 over the last 5 years. So we collect 110 is basically what we get out of that. So that increases by about 110,000 a year.
So, but does the billing not exponentially, but does the billing go up every year?
So the billing is increasing a little bit every year, but also the budget that we take out of it to keep the ambulance running goes about.
Goes up a little
Yeah.
bit.
So
the
that
delta-
110 stays
delta-
pretty close.
Delta is 110 just about
Yeah.
every time. So we can rely on the fact of about 110. And right now, you have approximately 700 grand in there?
Yep.
Okay. So making an assumption, let's just, for chuckles here. This coming year, it would be 800 grand and you have no expenditures.
So there's like 56,000 coming out, but we're getting another 50,000 back in grant money. So we're taking about 5,000 out.
Okay, so, but,
Yeah.
so that's 800 grand. Okay, I'm just roughing it.
Yep.
Okay. In 2024, if you replace the monitors, okay, you're still going to be, that you're going to be at about 840,000, give or take.
Yep.
Okay. 2025, you're going to be at 900,000, 925. 2026, you're going to be at a million 25 minus 350. Okay, so you'll still be at about 600 grand.
Yep.
Okay. Back up to 700 grand in 27. Okay. And another 350 plus. Okay. So you should have enough reserve money in as you're going forward and then start accumulating after that. Is there, as Pat has asked, so I'm not going to let him ask since he is conflicted out. Is there any other long-term concerns that you have in the ambulance area that we should be considering?
So there's two things. One is on here. The boat is already on here. That wasn't on there last year. As far as the ambulance goes, it was just in the fire budget, but splitting that between the two has made that onto here. The other thing that's going to be coming up, and I can't put a date on it yet, is radios.
The what?
Radios.
Radios.
Yeah. And that's going to be between 250 and 300,000. But again, that's going to be split between the fire and ambulance reserves. Basically, what the problem is, we've been buying radios when we've been buying trucks, and we've been replacing those radios when we're replacing trucks, and our radios are 20 years old. Also, that has put us in a spot where different batches of radios that were bought at different times are different than other radios. So that's put us in a position where some of the radios that's our lifeline, that's our safety net. And having a 20-year-old radio just doesn't work. The other danger is just having radios that work a little bit differently than the radio you're used to today. So changing them all out at the same time is going to make a huge difference. But it is not an inexpensive endeavor.
Okay.
So it'll be about 150 out of this budget,
Basically.
approximately.
So what I would ask is, do you think we should be putting the radios in now? Just so that we have visibility to it?
So that is, I would say yes. So
I
we
mean,
can
you've
see
got
it,
the
we can
boat
start
in
thinking
here.
about it, we know it's there. I'm really going to push for some grant money to help us with that, because it's one of those things that grants usually work out for. Grants have not worked out well for me recently. We've been asking for some high ticket items. This is a lower expense and a higher need. So there's a much better chance.
Okay. So what unless the board disagrees, what I suggest that we would at least put it in there for visibility, even though we know that it's not going to be part of our thing, but part of our decision-making in terms of where the money's coming from, or if we're reserving it. I think we should have, unless someone disagrees, I think we
Well,
should.
my only thing is, I mean, he's talking about trying for grant process. So in order to, like at the end of this year, when we got to make all the dollars go together and make it work, if we made it, maybe wait until next year to see how he made out with his grant.
Okay,
And then put it on the,
okay.
So
does that make sense?
I will say that this has burned us before, specifically with the ladder truck, because if you can remember for the last 5 years, we've had like the same reoccurring conversation about the ladder truck wasn't
Trying to lease it, trying to
wasn't-
grant it.
the
and-
ladder truck was not accounted for in CIP because we thought we were getting a grant. And we said it every year, year after year after year, and it was never accounted for. And then all of a sudden it was, we need to buy a ladder truck. And everybody's like, well, what do you mean? I thought it was in CIP. So my personal opinion with anything that the town owns is we account for it. And if we get a grant, great, then we can lower our appropriation the following year to account for that money.
Well,
That would be my personal opinion.
we're not going to be appropriating anything, okay?
Correct, with this particular account, but I'm
This
talking
particular-
globally for
Oh,
the
you're
entire
talking
CIP.
about everything, yeah.
Everything, globally CIP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, don't forget, this is the radios are one of those ones that's gonna be split between that and the fire CIP.
Okay,
Right, so it'd be like, there'd be 150
Yeah.
approximately coming out of the ambulance account. So
150 out of the ambulance.
it'll be
and another
150 out of the
150
next
the
yeah,
fire
truck. So, but
so it's close to 300 grand
for the whole project,
for
yeah.
the whole project.
What kind of
Is it-
radios are we talking about?
The portable radios and the mobile radios and the base station.
So is it just the radios, or is there some other equipment that goes with this? Is towers, this, that?
No towers, it's,
Just,
yep.
just radios?
Thankfully, the towers are included in our annual communications.
That's part of our
dispatch.
dispatch fees.
All right. So if anybody doesn't, and Roger, are you okay if we?
I can go with what Pat is saying there.
Yeah, okay. So why don't we put that in there, radios, okay?
Sure.
And,
So if you could,
Because then we can always back
Right.
it out if we get a grant. That's found
yeah,
money next
and
year.
then we can eliminate it, okay? But at least there's some visibility to it. You know, if anybody's reading this report, oh, we're gonna need radios, you know? Okay, and we should do the same thing with the police department. Okay, okay,
so Jim, if you could provide me the information on the radios
Yeah,
so that I can add in a new line and sort of plug in, the appropriate information,
we can do that.
great.
be great.
Why do you say we should do the same thing with the police department?
Because they're gonna be splitting it. It's gonna be 150 grand. It's gonna be 300,000.
Fire department, not the police department.
Did I miss something? Okay. Did you say that it gets split 50-50 between the police department and the fire department?
No, the ambulance capital reserve and the fire department capital reserve.
Right, so these two.
That is-
Oh,
so
the
like-
ambulance.
Yeah.
I thought
Yeah, not the police.
I'm sorry, Roger.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
I missed, I thought he said the police
I was
department.
saying that's gonna be up to Todd, but what you guys want to do there.
So it gets split between the two,
Yep.
fire department and
And the
ambulance.
ambulance.
Yep, and
Okay.
so as an example, I'll show you on here, we did the same thing with the boat.
Yeah,
So the boat, says FD 12
Yeah,
is also listed up here
Okay.
as ARF 5. So, and then I wrote a note, 175 was coming out of that account. So they're gonna be, so the same thing, the radios will be listed twice,
okay,
just like the boat.
okay, cool. Super,
super.
okay.
So is the boat 700,000?
Was the boat 700,000?
Yeah.
No.
I see 350 for the fire department and 350 for the ambulance.
Yeah, that should be,
I don't think she has it.
Yeah, she's-
Top, that's all.
Right, I didn't,
it's not split, that's all. It was 175 to 175.
I may clarify that.
And you're sure that they're not gonna screw you on the motors, huh? You definitely got a contract and they're gonna,
We do have a signed contract and they're,
you gotta give you the motors for that price?
yes. That part, yes.
Okay, good.
Okay,
When? I'd love to tell you
Hell
that.
freezes over, but
Yeah.
all right, all right. I gotta go back again. So on the ambulance.
Yep.
No, I'm sorry. On the, okay, on the boat. For the 350, should that be 175?
Yeah.
Okay. $175, and the boat down here should be 175,
Yes.
right? That's our 350. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
That'd be a heck of a lot of boat for 700.
Well,
Well,
not these days.
yeah, good point.
Okay. All right. Any questions, more questions from the board on the ambulance area? Guy? No, good, 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 good. Okay. Roger, you all set?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, chief, how about we move on to vehicles?
All right, so fire department, out of the fire capital reserve, I got engine 2 as the next one. I don't know where you guys are at with that, but that's basically our tanker truck scheduled to be replaced in 2024. 2-year build times, we've actually signed a contract approved by the selectmen to get this moving. We had figured 850, we signed the contract for 884,221.
$884,221.
221, yep. And
And
that's to be paid on delivery. So no money up front on that. So that money's not gonna come out until it's delivered, which should be 2024.
it's supposed to be delivered in 2024.
Yep. So that should be right on time with this. It's just, yeah, it's a long build time.
Yep. Okay,
So we changing the amount from 850 to,
884,221.
Yeah, I would. We know that's what it's gonna be. It's a signed contract. That price
Okay.
is basically, it's
884.
set.
221. Any change on that? That's just a different dollar amount, 221.
Just that dollar amount. Everything else is the same.
So everything, how's the ladder truck doing that we bought used?
She's doing okay, but she's tired. That's for sure.
Well, there's a lot of us that are tired.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and we're still doing okay, you know? Yeah, so what do you think? You think can you get another couple of years out of it, another year out of it? What do you think?
So if we go into here, I believe it's set in here at 2025.
Yep.
And really, it's probably gonna end up being like a 2026 by the time we can get a spec together, get it out to bid and get it built. Because again, it's gonna be a 2-year build time.
Yeah, when you, with something in this kind of magnitude and you sign a contract with one of the fire company manufacturers, what is the lead time on something like that?
It's a 2-year.
Be a year? And you sign the contract, will just as you're doing with the engine, the number 2 engine, okay, will they require any a down payment or?
It depends on what kind of contract we want to sign and what we want to look into. So just to go back to engine 2, if we paid everything up front, we would have saved $30,000.
Okay,
$30,000 on $1 million truck. The selectmen didn't think that was that significant due to the risk of paying it all up front before we get the truck. I will say you pay it up front, it is bonded. That money, if for some reason they can't provide you with that truck, that money comes back with interest. But we opted, and it's based on something that happened in Wolfboro with a different manufacturer, but if you go and give half a deposit, they'll take a little bit more off. So there are options out there and depends on the contract and it depends on the manufacturer.
Mhm.
So there are discounts for paying up front. There's discounts for paying half up front, and you can pay all at the end with no discount.
So do you want to keep that at 25 or what do you think?
That would be my recommendation. And that's just due to the age of the truck and, you know, that is also the selectman's recommendation at that time to get it replaced.
Okay.
So what happens to the one you got now? It's in 25, that's garbage?
It's not garbage, it gets traded in. Sometimes they go to like contractors, sometimes they go to collectors. Sometimes they
That's
go
a nice
to
truck.
smaller, slower departments. It just depends. Yeah, I mean, it is the proverbial needle in a haystack as far as used apparatus. It was maintained very, very well. But some of the things that you got to consider is the safety features are 25 years old. You know, all of the electronics on it are 25 years old. So there are things that exist that didn't exist when that truck was built. So there are things that it's missing.
How much did we pay for that?
75.
So let's just make an assumption that it might be worth 40 grand when you,
I would gather that we'll get everything we put into it back at trade-in. I can't promise you that because that's not what I do. I don't appraise
right.
trucks, but I would be surprised if we didn't get the 75 we put into it back at trade-in.
Would it be useful to go to the surrounding towns to see if anybody might want to pick it up?
I think it'd be useful to get, if we get the 75 back, that's our best use.
There's no question about it. I'm not talking about giving it, but selling it to one of the local towns. Do you think?
I mean, I'm not in the business of buying, you know, of selling
Everybody around us is
apparatuses.
loaded.
Mm.
They don't want used crap. And they're,
Loaded?
everybody around us is Democrats.
So
Loaded?
the reality is the places that sell fire trucks sell fire trucks.
Can we get that on record, please? Okay.
It probably already is.
I love you.
Saying.
Yeah.
I love you, Roger.
I understand what you're saying. The time, effort, and just the knowledge. I don't sell fire trucks. So to go around and try to sell that truck, I'm not gonna get you what the
Would we,
manufacturers would.
would we be better off keeping it?
No,
No. Okay.
it's,
Yeah, because it's $75,000.
Aerial ladder trucks have the ability to cost us a lot of money in a very short amount of time.
the maintenance that goes into them.
Our last truck cost us nearly $100,000 in 1 year, and it only put a Band-Aid on a problem. So these particular vehicles are just,
Got it.
Well, I happened to be there when they were testing the ladder for its weight. I thought it was kind of interesting.
oh yes, every year.
Yeah.
Were you the guy they sent up there?
What's that?
Were you the guy they sent up there?
No. They actually, they drive their minivan up on this thing and
Well,
they've got this little, you know, it measures the weights and all the different stuff. It's interesting.
they do it to the aerial ladder and they do it to all the ground ladders, obviously different. A little bit lesser of a test on the ground ladders, but yeah. All that gets tested yearly to make sure it's still meeting, you know, NFPA recommendations.
Okay. Questions from the board?
So the next one I had in here was engine one. Replaced for 2027. It's a 2007, following on that 20-year replacement. This truck, she's got a lot of rust on the frame rails. And this truck was made so it could fit into the West Alton station. So they had kind of lowered the suspension on it. They lowered it on the frame. And where they made those adjustments, it has collected salt, sand, and that's where it's lost like 3/4 of an inch on the frame due to rust there. It's a spot you can't see unless you pull the wheels off. The highway department happened to be doing some work. They pulled them off and they're like, hey, you got to come see this. It's a spot you can't get a hose in there to clean it off. You just can't get to it without taking the wheels all the way off.
The other problem with this particular vehicle is it was run sort of significantly longer than it was designed to run for. The town of Alton maintains 3 Class A pumpers because of the geography of the town and the fact that we're split in half by a lake to support and fire suppression operations in each area of the community. The idea behind these vehicles is so that we replace the downtown truck, and then it goes to a second due or secondary role for the second half of its life. This particular truck is essentially served double duty downtown, so it saw significantly more miles than we anticipate the new ones to serve. So that will certainly help.
So in other words, what
Yeah.
you're saying is it started downtown and then it went to West Alton.
It stayed downtown.
It stayed, it didn't get rotated.
It never
when should
rotated
have.
out.
And
So-
that's one significant change that's happening is these trucks are getting rotated so they don't get wore out.
So you're saying you want this one earlier than 27?
It's been moved to a secondary role. It should last then, but no longer. It's not one that could even be thought of being pushed. If that makes sense. And I believe the 650 replacement is still gonna be accurate.
Okay, did we miss 2026?
No, I think we're going in order of the.
Oh, in
Yeah,
order.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't know what order you guys have these papers in, so
Yeah.
I can
Oh,
only,
yeah.
Going in the
okay.
order of the
I can only go in the order I
Sheets.
have.
Okay, so,
I can go whatever order you
It's
want.
just, so it's not how he numbered the projects.
Yeah, that's
So
just how I
that's
put them in the book.
what's- So that's how we're going.
I can
in
go
order.
over them. I can go whichever way you want. I just need to know.
By date of replacement, chief, if you could. Thank you.
Thanks.
okay, so let's talk, okay, so this one's got rust issues.
Mhm.
And that's why you want to replace it in 2027, but you want to replace the engine number 3, okay, in 2026. Tell us what's going on with that one.
So engine 3 is a 1996.
Yep,
So it's gonna be 30 years old when it comes up for replacement,
Right.
instead of 20, which is our typical 20. This truck, however, if need be, this is one that could be pushed out. So it's pumping really well. It's not run really hard right now. It's at the East Alton station as we speak. I can't tell you where it came from because it was bought as a used apparatus before I came. But basically it had low use before it came. So this one was in excellent condition. Every year it gets its pump test and it pumps like it's brand new. Truck was wherever it came from, barely used and well maintained. As a backup piece of apparatus or as one of the second due engines in the outlying stations, it could go a little bit longer.
So would it be smart to switch engine 1 with engine 3? So you get that a year newer and a year sooner, and this one can go a year later if you think it can go that.
I mean, yes.
I don't know what you got. That would,
I kind of like that thinking.
Yeah.
You know,
if you are happy with what this machine, even though it's older, if it's doing its job and it's on the
It's doing everything it
secondary,
needs to do.
secondary
And
garage, or yeah, however you call it, but it's the secondary. If you think that one's good to go at least one more year, but the one with the rust issues, you were like right on the border.
yeah, I
Wouldn't it-
mean,
I-
we're one frost eve away from it cracking.
Well, why would that make sense to switch those?
Yes.
it would seem to me that would make sense. So why don't we reverse them? Okay?
Sure.
Okay? Because in order to, you're gonna need a lead time of a year just to get the damn thing. And from what you're saying, the rust could catch up with you sooner than you wanted to. What will you do with that particular truck?
Which one are you asking?
The one with the rust,
Trade it in.
Yeah, trade in, get the best
Trade it
value
in.
we can for it.
right?
Um,
Okay, why don't we switch them?
sure.
Okay, chief, okay? So this one goes here. This one goes here. Okay, so all things being said, I mean, I got 66 grand out here for this forestry, for the forestry 1 truck, right?
Yep.
And you got that out in 2028. All being said, when we get to 2028 you've got some relatively new, good equipment that you've maintained. What, is there anything that you see out there that longer term, that could affect the fire department in any way, shape or form, that we should be aware of, and should be thinking about?
So again, I spoke about the radios earlier.
Right.
Same issue.
Right.
Obviously, buildings. Buildings are their own. They're an issue that just haven't been visited. And, hopefully we're getting some leeway on that. We're getting ahead of that.
We're trying.
Right.
Well, there's no question that there's a lot more visibility in the town, or at least with the town officials. And, now that we have a facilities committee, that we're talking about possibly a safety building or highway and fire. I mean, there's no question that we've got a facilities issue
Yeah.
that we need to address.
Right. Yeah, the fire department is definitely not alone in that issue.
Right. And I'm hoping, based on the new master plan that's coming out and with whatever the facilities committee comes up with, I know that the facilities committee is looking at properties. I know the facilities committee is taking in an awful lot of information in terms of getting information on what a firehouse would look like. Okay, what a highway department building would look like, what kind of land mass would it look like, in terms of having it centrally located. There's been at least 7 properties that I'm aware of that have been identified as being centrally located that would service the town appropriately, that's on one of the major highways, which then frees up a lot of other space, for the rest of what is needed to run the town. Does the board maybe feel that we should be putting something in there with regards to a facility, or should we just kind of wait to see what comes out of the facilities committee? Because it's going to be probably the whole year before we get anywhere.
And I would say, wait.
And again, that's in the building. That's the other capital reserve. So I didn't mean to throw that in while we're talking about the vehicle and equipment, but
Right.
that is the building capital reserve, which it's its own different fund. I don't know that there's much that we can do at this point as far as planning for a building that needs to be done now.
Right.
You know what I mean? I don't know that there's anything more we can do than what is happening between the facilities and the master plan committee and the selectmen.
I don't think there can be.
Yeah.
We really need to just stay focused on the equipment and, and making sure that the fire department has the equipment that it needs to do fires and not worry about the building per se. And does that mean that you might have to have the latrines and the showers outside? I suppose it may be, but you guys are tough guys anyways, so.
So like the buildings, right now, we're pretty well focused on the center, as far as in the building goes. We're focused pretty well on the central fire station, but our outbuildings are in disrepair as well. So that's also going to have to be visited at some point. And that's where we have a chance to plan and get some things into that capital reserve.
Okay. Questions?
I will say the other thing that I put in here, and I threw it in even though I put it as a 2029 project, is the car. The command car. I put it in as a 2029 project. That's because it was slated to be a 2028 project. The car didn't, it's a 2019, so it can be put off. The 10-year mark would be 2029, so.
Okay.
I just put that in there so we can mark that change.
Great. Thank you. Questions? Chief, great. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, nice job. And looking forward to seeing some of these new apparatuses, really.
Me too.
Hey, is there a difference between ladder truck and snorkel? They have these boom lifts.
Yeah, so there are trucks out there. So there's kind of like three different styles. There's a ladder truck, which is what we have right now. It's just a ladder, straight ladder. There's tower trucks, which have a platform at the top of them. And then there's like the snorkel style, which is literally just an arm and a gun.
Right.
And just a water gun, typically no ladder, no ability for rescue, no ability for escape. It's just a raised nozzle.
It's just a nozzle up there. So that's not that doesn't save lives. No.
I mean, putting fires out saves lives, but it doesn't allow for rescue.
Yeah.
Well, we do have a height limitation in Alton. You could do it with a bucket truck.
Kinda, yeah. So when we did part of the grant process, we had to prove that we had more than 40 buildings in town that were over 4 stories. That's what I thought. I stopped counting somewhere around 70.
Huh?
Yeah.
What do you count
I was,
basements that?
so
Because
it's
because I know that
4
it
stories
gets averaged
from
out.
grade.
I know it gets averaged out. I mean, you
Yeah.
could be, walk-in basement, but the other side of it is buried, so
Yeah.
they don't necessarily call that a floor when you're going to, 27 feet.
Right. So it's all based on grade and where a truck would be parked. And there's livable space. So an empty attic wouldn't count, but they had to be a place with a livable space. So that if they had dormers and things like that, it would count that. And we were very surprised when we started going through, because I'm like, yeah, there's no way.
But would have never guessed that.
Yeah, there's a lot more than I.
And it's
Would've-
not,
would've
and
thought.
that's just one specific use for the vehicle, too.
Right.
Like aerial rescues from a window. Okay. So now we go to our most common call, which is chimney fires. And it's not about height, it's about reach.
Yeah.
And there's so many times where our 75-foot aerial comes up short. You wouldn't believe it unless you saw it. I have a bunch of
Fancy
pictures. But when we
Well,
talk
you can't
about,
go out like that.
yep, no, we can.
You can go.
Yep, straight out sideways. We can do below grade too. So if we had to go off a bridge or down an embankment or something to that effect with a rope system, potentially to lift somebody up out of somewhere, we could do that. The other part of that is roofs seem to be getting steeper and steeper, and everybody's going with metal. And
Or
it's
solar
very,
panel.
very, very dangerous, or solar. Even bigger problem to climb on, particularly in the winter when we have chimney fires. So it's just all around, a safety device, essentially.
So in 2029, I think this board can start thinking about, because we took care of the highway department.
Yeah, our projects start to kind of taper off.
We can start thinking about tapering
Mhm.
it down, because we have some
Yeah.
long,
Yeah, we
long
end up with some breathing
timeframes.
room.
right,
I'm sure another department is probably going to be up.
and look, yeah, right.
And I mean, and the hope is to keep the overall CIP allotment the same.
Right. Okay, great. Thanks, chief.
Thank you.
Have a great night.
You too.
Thank you.
I think you beat Ryan.
Okay,
I also had, things.
How about God, man, I think you beat.
Oh, yeah, actually, you're right.
I said it wrong.
okay, moving right along. Thank you. Moving right along, and I'd love to see us be out of here by 7:45. Okay, so moving right along. Calendar meeting date, we have another meeting next week, September 13th. Has everybody got that on their calendars? Okay,
Yep, and I'm gonna have the projector set up. So that way we can have this Excel sheet up there.
oh, great.
And after we, sit with Josh, we can start
We can
going
start-
over
we
the
can
plan,
start
if we,
going
you know,
with
we
that.
want to start doing that night,
That would be
great.
wonderful. Do we need another scheduled meeting at this point, or should we schedule another meeting in between September 13th and October 18th?
So
Thoughts?
yeah, the October 18th meeting is when there'll be a joint meeting to present the plan.
Okay,
So I feel like that would only leave us the end of the September 13th meeting to actually look and do the shell game. I don't feel like that's enough time.
okay,
All
all
right,
right. So schedule.
all right, let me see what's
Dates.
available here.
How does the 27th look?
I won't be here.
Let's see.
You-
I'm gonna be gone from the 21st to the 1st.
To the 1st?
Yeah.
Wow.
Okay, so you're gone that whole week. Okay. So that would bring us to October.
How does the first week of October look?
So that's not a good week. There's meetings that week. What we do have available the following week, like the week of the 10th. We pretty much have that whole week open. The Conservation Commission's meeting on Thursday, but they meet downstairs.
Okay,
So.
how does everybody look for the 11th, Tuesday, the 11th?
So let's see.
I'm good.
Tuesday, the 11th?
October,
Matt?
Yes.
Tuesday, the 11th.
Roger?
I'm just rolling around town like any days. Unless I have a planning board meeting or a small house.
Do you go to all those liberal highfalutin towns?
Yeah, that's me.
During the, yeah.
That's me.
So October
This
11th
is live, I think.
is a good,
October 11th.
is a good date. So that would be the week before the planning board meeting. So that
Yes.
would be fine.
Yeah,
That-
yeah, we should be able to finish it up,
Mhm.
you know,
And then if we don't need it, then great, but it's there. and
it's there,
scheduled.
right? Okay,
All right.
all right?
Yep.
Hopefully we won't need it. We'll be able to finish everything up on the 13th, but if we can't, we can't, you know, we'll take it from there. Is that, okay, so that's gonna be October 11th. Okay, and then the 18th is already put in on the schedule.
Yep.
November 15th, public hearing, okay, blah, blah, blah. To present to the plan, okay.
Yeah,
November.
and then at that point, it depends on whenever the
Right.
selectmen and budget committee
Okay.
schedule us.
Anybody on the board have any concerns about the calendar meeting dates at this point? No? Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna go to public input. Is there anyone out there in the public that would like to speak on behalf of anything that we've talked about? Seeing none, hearing none, I'm gonna close public input. Any questions or further comments or discussions from the board?
No.
Seeing none, hearing none. I will entertain an adjournment.
So moved.
Second that.
You'll second that? So moved by Pat. Perfect. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Great. God, 7:34.
7:35, same time last week.
I love it when a plan comes together. Thank you, gentlemen.